husband's affair and plot to transfer assets to lover and wife's revenge. In 2025, in Shadows Under Chicago Lights, Chicago attorney Claire Montgomery discovers that her husband Ethan is having an affair with Lydia Harper and is plotting to steal their fortune. She then seeks revenge. The story begins. Everyone, please subscribe to my Sweet Revenge YouTube channel. The Chicago skyline burned with 1,000 lights, a jagged crown of glass and steel piercing the night. From the penthouse atop the Willis Tower, Claire Montgomery stood motionless, her reflection a ghost in the floor-to-ceiling windows. At 38, she was a legend in Chicago's legal circles, a lawyer whose sharp tongue and sharper mind had toppled corporate giants. But tonight, her hazel eyes were hollow, her fingers trembling around a glass of Pinot Noir. The city hummed below, indifferent to the fracture in her soul. Ethan, her husband of 18 years, was late again. His text, caught up with clients, "Don't wait up," glowed on her phone. A lie as cold as the wind rattling the windows. The faint scent of jasmine perfume, not hers, lingered on his discarded blazer. A silent accusation. Claire's chest tightened, her breath shallow. She'd built this life with Ethan. Brick by meticulous brick, a glittering marriage. A daughter, Ava, now 16, and this penthouse that screamed success. But the cracks were spreading. Ava's bedroom door slammed, the bass of her music vibrating through the walls. A barrier against the silence that choked their home. Claire knocked softly. "Ava, honey, can we talk?" Her voice cracked, betraying her composure. "Go away, Mom." Ava's shout was raw, laced with teenage defiance. Claire pressed her forehead against the door, her heart sinking. Ava had changed, skipping classes, sneaking out, her once bright eyes now shadowed. Claire wanted to scream, to shake her daughter and demand answers. But she was too tired, too afraid. She sank onto the leather sofa, the wineglass cold against her lips. Memories of Ethan's warmth, his laughter from their early days, clashed with the stranger he'd become, distant, evasive, his blue eyes avoiding hers. "You're paranoid," he'd snapped last week when she'd asked about his late nights. The words stung, but the jasmine scent didn't lie. Neither did the bank statements she'd glimpsed, unexplained transfers, sums that made her stomach lurch. Claire's phone buzzed, snapping her from her thoughts. It was Sam Carter, a private investigator and her friend since their Northwestern University days. His gruff voice had always grounded her, a tether to the girl she'd been before ambition and marriage reshaped her. "Sam, I need you," she said, her voice low, urgent. "Something's wrong with Ethan. I can't ignore it anymore. Meet me at Rosie's Diner, Michigan Avenue, midnight." Sam replied, his tone clipped but warm. "Bring your game face, Claire. This ain't gonna be pretty." The diner was a relic, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. Inside, the air smelled of grease and coffee, the jukebox crooning Sinatra. Sam sat in a corner booth, his weathered face half lit by a flickering bulb. At 45, he looked older, his graying stubble and scarred knuckles a map of hard years. He slid a manila folder across the table as Claire sat, her coat still damp from the drizzle outside. "You sure you want this?" Sam's brown eyes searched hers, heavy with concern. Claire nodded, her jaw tight. He sighed, opening the folder. Photos spilled out. Ethan, laughing, his arm around a woman with sleek blonde hair and a predator smile. Her name's Lydia Harper, 29. Interior designer. They've been at it for months. Hotels, his office, even a condo he's renting in Lincoln Park. Claire's fingers dug into her palms, her nails drawing blood. The photos blurred as her eyes burned, but she refused to cry. "There's more," Sam said, his voice grim. "Ethan's moving money, your money. Offshore accounts, tied to Lydia. He's planning something big, Claire. Maybe leaving you, maybe worse." The words hit like a fist. Claire's mind raced, piecing together Ethan's late nights, his sudden interest in their life insurance policy. "That bastard," she whispered, her voice venom, but beneath the rage, fear coiled, fear for Ava, for the life she'd fought for. She looked at Sam, her eyes steel. "I need everything, Sam, every account, every meeting, every dirty secret. He's not taking my daughter or my life." Sam leaned back, studying her. "You're playing with fire, Claire. Ethan's connected, politicians, developers. You go after him, you're in the deep end. Then I'll learn to swim," she said, her voice cold, resolute. She slid a check across the table, her signature sharp as a blade. Find me the truth, Sam, all of it. Back in the penthouse, Claire stood by Ava's door. The music softer now. She wanted to barge in, to hold her daughter and promise everything would be okay. But she couldn't, not yet. She walked to her office, the city's lights casting long shadows across her desk. Opening her laptop, she began reviewing the bank statements, her legal mind dissecting every anomaly. Ethan thought he could outsmart her, but he'd forgotten who she was, a woman who'd clawed her way to the top, who'd never lost a case. The clock struck 2 a.m., the city quieter now, its pulse a faint thrum. Claire's reflection stared back from the window, a warrior in silk pajamas, her face etched with determination. She wouldn't break, not for Ethan, not for Lydia, not for anyone. But as she sipped her wine, a single tear fell, betraying the storm inside. Chicago's shadows whispered her name, and she knew this was only the beginning. The Chicago wind howled through the concrete canyons of the Loop, carrying the sting of betrayal as Claire Montgomery navigated the city's pulse. Her heels clicked against the rain-slicked pavement of LaSalle Street, each step a declaration of war. At 38, she was a force in the courtroom. But now her battle was personal. Ethan's affair with Lydia Harper, the siphoning of their wealth, the lies, they burned in her chest like a smoldering ember. The penthouse atop the Willis Tower, once her sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage, its glass walls mocking her with their false transparency. Yet Claire moved with purpose, her hazel eyes sharp, her mind a steel trap weaving a plan to dismantle her husband's deceit. In her office at the law firm, surrounded by mahogany and leather, Claire pored over Sam Carter's latest report. The private investigator's findings were a gut punch. Ethan had funneled millions into offshore accounts, all tied to Lydia's name. Worse, Sam had uncovered emails linking Ethan to shady real estate deals, bribes to city officials, forged permits for crumbling buildings. Claire's fingers trembled as she traced the numbers, her breath shallow. He thinks he can bury me, she muttered, her voice a low growl. She dialed Diane Walsh, a prosecutor at the Cook County State's Attorney's office, her voice steady despite the storm inside. Diane, it's Claire. I've got something big. Ethan's dirty. Can you meet me? Name the place. Diane replied, her tone crisp, sensing Claire's urgency. They met at a dimly lit bar in River North, the clink of glasses and murmur of patrons masking their words. Diane, a no-nonsense woman with graying hair and a hawk's gaze, leaned forward. What's he done? Claire, you look like you're ready to burn the city down. Claire slid a USB drive across the table, her eyes blazing. Bribes, money laundering, asset transfers. Ethan's not just cheating, he's stealing everything. From me, from Ava. Her voice cracked on her daughter's name, and she clenched her fist, nails biting into her palm. Diane's brow furrowed as she pocketed the drive. This is dynamite, Claire. If it's solid, we can nail him, but you need to be careful. Ethan's got friends in high places. Let them try to protect him. Claire said, her voice ice. I'm done playing the fool. At home, the penthouse was a battlefield of silence. Claire cooked dinner, her movements mechanical, the sizzle of garlic in the pan a stark contrast to the coldness between her and Ethan. He sauntered in at 10 p.m., his tie loosened, his smile too polished. Long day, babe, he said, kissing her cheek. The faint trace of jasmine, Lydia's perfume, made Claire's stomach churn. But she forced a smile, her lips tight. You must be exhausted, she said, her tone syrupy, masking the venom. Big deals keeping you out late? Ethan's eyes flickered, a shadow of suspicion crossing his face. Just the usual, you know how it is. He poured a whiskey, his back to her, but Claire saw the tension in his shoulders. He was lying, and he knew she knew. The air crackled with unspoken accusations. Ava, meanwhile, was unraveling. The 16-year-old sat cross-legged on her bed, her phone glowing with Instagram messages. Her rebellion, sneaking out to Wicker Park parties, skipping calculus, hid a deeper wound. She missed the parents who once laughed together, who tucked her in with bedtime stories. Desperate for answers, Ava had catfished Lydia, posing as a client named Sophie. Lydia's replies were careless, dripping with arrogance. Ethan's setting me up for life. Soon, it's just us and a penthouse in Miami. Ava's heart sank, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She typed, does his wife know? Lydia's response was instant, she's clueless. Ethan's got her wrapped around his finger. Ava's chest tightened, guilt and rage warring inside her. She wanted to tell Claire, to scream the truth, but fear stopped her. What if Mom broke? Instead, she sent an anonymous message to Lydia. Claire's onto you. Be careful. The moment she hit send, Ava's stomach twisted. She'd meant to protect her mother. But had she just lit a fuse? Lydia, lounging in her Lincoln Park condo, read the message and froze. Her green eyes narrowed, her manicured nails tapping the phone. Ethan, we've got a problem, she said, her voice sharp as she called him. Your wife's sniffing around. We need to move faster. Ethan, pacing his office, snapped. She doesn't know a damn thing. Keep your head, Lydia, but his voice shook, paranoia creeping in. He began checking his accounts, his emails, his trail, anything Claire might find. That night, in the penthouse, the tension snapped. Ethan stormed in, his face flushed, his blue eyes wild. What the hell are you up to? Claire? He barked, slamming his keys on the marble counter. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Claire, in her silk robe, turned slowly, her expression calm but her pulse racing. What's wrong, Ethan? Bad day at the office? Her voice was a blade, smooth and lethal. Don't play games with me. He snarled, stepping closer, his breath hot with whiskey. You're digging, aren't you? Checking my accounts. My phone? Claire's heart pounded, but she held his gaze, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. If I were digging, Ethan, you'd know. I'd have buried you already. The lie was bold, her eyes daring him to push further. Ethan's hand twitched, and for a moment, Claire thought he might strike her. Instead, he grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. You're nothing without me, he hissed. Claire wrenched free, her voice low, venomous. Keep telling yourself that. He stormed to the bar, pouring another drink, but his hands shook. Claire's mind raced. She was close. Too close. She needed more evidence, more time. The sterile hum of Northwestern Memorial Hospital was a cruel counterpoint to the chaos in Claire Montgomery's heart. She awoke to the sharp scent of antiseptic, her head throbbing, her body a map of bruises from her fall down the penthouse staircase. Ethan's betrayal, his affair with Lydia Harper, the theft of their wealth, the shove that nearly killed her, burned like acid in her veins. At 38, Claire was no stranger to battles, but this one had shattered her world. Beside her, Ava, her 16-year-old daughter, sat hunched, her tear-streaked face pale under the fluorescent lights. Mom, I'm so sorry, Ava whispered, her voice breaking. I told Lydia you were onto them. I didn't mean. Claire reached for her daughter's hand, her grip weak but fierce. We're not broken yet, Ava, she said, her voice hoarse but resolute. We'll fix this, together. Sam Carter, the grizzled private investigator, stood at the foot of the bed, his weathered face etched with guilt. Claire, they're gone, he said, his voice low, urgent. Ethan and Lydia cleaned out the accounts, millions. Offshore, they've got a head start. But I've got a lead. A cabin in the Wisconsin Dells, just outside Chicago. Claire's eyes narrowed, her lawyer's mind slicing through the pain. Find them, Sam, she said, her voice steel. I don't care what it takes. Ava's eyes widened, fear mingling with awe at her mother's resolve. Sam nodded, his jaw tight. You're not in fighting shape. Claire, let the cops handle this. But Claire's gaze was unyielding. This is my fight, she said. They don't get to win. Discharged against medical advice. Claire ignored the ache in her ribs as she and Ava returned to the penthouse. The Willis Tower loomed against a bruised sky, its glass facade reflecting a city that felt like a stranger. Inside, the penthouse was a ghost of their life. Ethan's cologne lingered. A cruel reminder. Claire's phone buzzed with a text from Diane Walsh. The prosecutor. Evidence is solid. We're building the case. Stay safe. Claire's lips curled, a flicker of triumph in her chest. Ethan's bribes, his money laundering, his assault, she had him cornered. But the victory felt hollow as Ava curled up on the couch. Her eyes distant. Mom, what if he comes back? Ava asked, her voice small. Claire knelt, brushing a lock of hair from her daughter's face. He won't hurt us again, she said, her voice fierce but trembling. I promise. Sam's call came at midnight. His voice taut. They're at the cabin. State police are on standby. But Claire, don't do anything stupid. She didn't answer, already pulling on her coat. Ava insisted on coming, her jaw set. I'm not staying behind. Mom, I messed this up. I need to help. Claire wanted to argue, to shield her daughter, but Ava's eyes mirrored her own defiance. They drove through the rain-soaked night, Chicago's skyline fading into the dark expanse of I-94. The Wisconsin Dells cabin was a squat, weathered structure nestled among pines, its windows glowing like predators' eyes. Rain lashed Claire's face as she stepped out, Sam at her side, Ava clutching her hand. Inside, Ethan stood by a crackling fireplace, his face haggard, his suit rumpled. Lydia lounged on a couch, her blonde hair spilling over a cashmere sweater, her green eyes cold. "Claire," Ethan said, his voice a mix of shock and fear. "You're supposed to be dead?" Claire cut in, her voice a blade. "You pushed me, Ethan. You stole everything. Did you think I'd just disappear?" Her words echoed in the small room, the rain drumming a relentless beat outside. Ethan's hands shook as he stepped forward, his voice pleading. "I messed up, Claire. I was scared, desperate. Let's start over, please." Claire laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You don't get to beg," she said, pulling Sam's folder from her coat. "Bank records, emails, proof of his crimes. The police are outside. Ethan, you're done." Lydia sprang up, her face twisted with rage. "You think you've won?" she hissed, her voice venomous. "You're pathetic, Claire. He never loved you." Claire's fist clenched, but she held her ground, her eyes locked on Ethan. "You took my trust, my life, but you won't take my daughter." Ethan lunged, desperation in his eyes, but Sam stepped in, pinning him against the wall. "Don't make this worse, Montgomery," Sam growled. The state police stormed in, cuffs clicking as Ethan's pleas turned to curses. Lydia screamed, her composure shattering, but Claire's focus was on Ava, who stood trembling, tears streaming. "It's over, baby," Claire whispered, pulling her close, but it wasn't. Days later, back in Chicago, Claire's phone rang in the dead of night. Lydia's voice was a chilling whisper. "You took him from me. Now I take her." Claire's heart stopped as she rushed to Ava's room, empty, the window ajar. Sam traced Lydia's phone to an abandoned warehouse by the Chicago River, its rusted skeleton looming under a sickle moon. Claire's pulse thundered as she and Sam raced through the city, the skyline a blur of light and shadow. Inside the warehouse, Lydia stood on a catwalk, Ava bound at her feet, a knife glinting in her hand. "You ruined everything," Lydia screamed, her eyes wild. "You don't deserve her." Claire's voice was steady, though fear clawed her insides. "Let her go, Lydia. This is between us." Ava's muffled sobs cut through the air, and Claire's resolve hardened. Lydia laughed, a manic edge to her voice. "You think you're so smart, lawyer lady, but I'm not losing everything." She raised the knife, and Claire moved without thinking. Charging up the catwalk, Lydia swung, the blade grazing Claire's arm. But Claire tackled her, the two women crashing against a rusted beam. The structure groaned, and with a sickening crack, the beam gave way. Lydia's scream echoed as she fell into the river's black depths, swallowed by the current. Claire untied Ava, pulling her into a fierce embrace as police lights flashed outside. "I've got you," Claire whispered, her voice breaking as Ava clung to her. Sobbing, Sam guided them out, his face grim. The warehouse stood silent, a tomb for Lydia's vengeance. Chicago's river flowed on, indifferent, as Claire held her daughter, the cost of her victory etched in every trembling breath. The Chicago River flowed black and silent under the sickle moon, its surface unbroken where Lydia Harper had vanished into its depths. Claire Montgomery knelt on the warehouse's cracked concrete floor, her arms wrapped around Ava, her 16-year-old daughter, whose sobs shook them both. The air was thick with the tang of rust and river water. The police sirens outside a distant wail against the pounding in Claire's ears. At 38, she had faced down courtroom titans, but nothing had prepared her for this, the knife in Lydia's hand, the terror in Ava's eyes, the moment she'd fought to save her daughter and watched a life end. Blood seeped from the gash on her arm, soaking her sleeve, but Claire felt only the weight of Ava's trembling body against hers. "I've got you, baby," she whispered, her voice raw, cracking under the strain. "You're safe now." Sam Carter, the grizzled private investigator, stood nearby, his weathered face taut as he spoke to the police. "She's gone," he said, his voice low, nodding toward the river. "No way she survived that fall." The officer, a young man with a clipboard, scribbled notes, his flashlight beam cutting through the warehouse's gloom. Claire met Sam's eyes, a silent question passing between them. Had she gone too far? Sam's nod was grim but steady. You did what you had to. Claire, he said, his voice a quiet anchor. But Claire's heart churned. She'd wanted justice, not death. Back at the penthouse atop the Willis Tower, the city's skyline glittered, its lights cold and indifferent. Claire sat on the leather sofa, a glass of untouched wine on the coffee table, her bandaged arm throbbing. Ava curled beside her, her head on Claire's shoulder, her breathing uneven. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the city below. Ethan was in custody, his real estate empire crumbling under the weight of Diane Walsh's prosecution. Headlines screamed across Chicago. Tycoons fall, fraud, assault, betrayal, Claire's evidence, bank records, bribes, proof of his attack, had sealed his fate. But victory tasted like ash. She'd won, but at what cost? Mom, Ava said, her voice small, hesitant. I'm sorry I told Lydia. I thought I was helping. But I made it worse. Her eyes, red-rimmed and too old for her years, searched Claire's face. Claire cupped Ava's cheek, her touch gentle but firm. You were trying to protect me, she said, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. We made mistakes, both of us, but we're still here. Ava's lip trembled, and she buried her face in Claire's shoulder. A sob escaping, Claire held her tightly, her own tears falling silently into Ava's hair. The penthouse, once a symbol of their perfect life, now felt like a hollow shell, its marble floors and crystal chandeliers mocking their fractured family. The next morning, Claire stood in her office at the law firm, the Chicago skyline sprawling beyond the window. Her desk was cluttered with case files, but her mind was elsewhere. She'd returned to work, her colleagues whispering about her heroic survival, but their praise felt empty. She was a warrior, yes, but one scarred by her own choices. Diane called, her voice brisk over the phone. Ethan's pleading guilty, she said. No trial. He's looking at 15 years. Minimum. You did it, Claire. Claire's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. Thanks, Diane, she said, but her voice was hollow. Justice was hers, but it hadn't healed the wounds. Ava, too, was changed. At 17, she'd traded her rebellion for a quiet intensity. Her skateboard and ripped jeans replaced by journals where she poured out her thoughts. Claire enrolled them in therapy, a small office in Lakeview where they sat across from a kind-eyed woman named Dr. Ellis. How do you feel, Claire? Dr. Ellis asked one session, her pen poised. Claire stared at the floor, the question unmooring her. I saved my daughter, she said finally, her voice low, but I see Lydia's face every night. The way she screamed. She trailed off, her hands clenching. Ava reached for her, their fingers entwining. You saved me, Mom, Ava said, her voice fierce. Don't forget that. Claire's throat tightened, and she nodded, but the guilt lingered, a shadow she couldn't outrun. One evening, as the sun bled red over Lake Michigan, Claire and Ava walked along the lakefront trail. The city's pulse was softer here, the lapping waves a quiet contrast to the chaos they'd survived. Ava stopped, her sneakers scuffing the path. Mom, are we gonna be okay? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Claire looked at her daughter, the girl who'd become her reason to fight. We're enough, Ava, she said, her voice steady, though her heart ached. You and me, we're enough. Ava's eyes shimmered, and she nodded, slipping her hand into Claire's. They walked on, the skyline looming behind them, its lights no longer warm but enduring, like their bond. That night, Claire stood alone by the penthouse windows, the city sprawling below. Chicago's shadows stretched long, whispering her name, a reminder of the price she'd paid. She'd reclaimed her life, her daughter, her strength, but the scars remained, etched in every glance at the river, every quiet moment with Ava. She sipped her wine, the glass cold against her lips, and made a silent vow, no one would break them again. But as the city pulsed, its lights unyielding, Claire knew, some wounds never healed, only faded, like shadows under Chicago's endless lights. If you find the story interesting, please like and share this video and leave a comment with your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Revenge and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos.